You're not cheating on your wife if you eat my lemon square.
Your lemon squares taste like ass.
All right. Hello, everyone. We are Trace Thurman and Joe Lipsett with Bloody Disgusting's Horror Queers podcast, talking with Kevin Bacon, Carrie Preston, and John Logan of They/Them. Hello.
Oh. Hey, good to see you.
Well, first of all, this is actually going to be a first picture for Logan, but there's a lot of words and phrases in this film, both pro and anti-queer, that feel very deliberate in the writing process. But can you elaborate on your process for writing dialogue in this camp, and kind of where you pulled from to get this stuff?
Well, I pulled from imagination. I made it up, and because it's a work of fiction. But, I talked to a lot of kids who went through gay conversion, and they talked about the kind of language, that was employed. Mostly the psychological gamesmanship that went on in an effort to sort of tear down the personality and the identity of the students. So it really sort of all came from them. And, in terms of the sort of modus operandi of the language, it was mostly about misdirection. As Kevin can speak to, we wanted the audience and the campers to be sort of unsettled by how comfortable this was, because Owen speaks in very woke language and he's very sympathetic when you first meet him, as is Cora. They're kind people. They're not what you expect from horrific so-called gay conversion camp monsters. And then as the movie goes on, the language becomes more incisive, sharper, and more malicious. That was the intention anyway.
So you said you spoke with people who had attended the camps. Did you actually speak to any employees or former employees of said camps?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we found that a lot of the language really strongly connected to us as queers, because we had seen a lot of those kinds of phrases used against us and our colleagues online. So it felt very topical and timely. It's interesting that you mentioned that you were able to speak with people who had been through the process. I wonder, Kevin and Carrie, would you mind speaking to how you prepared? Did you have the opportunity to be part of those conversations?
Well, the first thing that happened is that John called me, and we've known each other for many, many years. And he said, I wrote something with you in mind. And how am I supposed to take that when I start reading this? I couldn't think of anybody else to play this other than you. Thank you, buddy. But we started to talk about this idea that he had mentioned of, making his, well, it was already on the page, but playing him in a way that would be as non-threatening as possible. And I think that my feeling was that I wanted, at least initially in the script, for somebody to be sitting there and going, yeah, well, I kind of get what he's saying. You know what I mean? That it's like it has that it's that subversive in the way that it's such a mind fuck that it's we then have the opportunity to flip it and completely show the anger, the fear, and the darkness behind this initial indoctrination.
I will say it worked for me. I literally, in the first scene where we meet all of y'all, I was very much like, maybe they're not that bad. So I was very gullible in that respect.
Yeah,
I was not.
It's so brilliant with what John did, that he takes religion completely out of it. So it's not about that. We're not even going to talk about that, because that would be easy to scapegoat and say, oh, it's just these religious nuts or whatever. And it's not. These are people who have, like in my character's case, is highly educated, licensed therapist, and clearly seems to care for these people. And then we slowly get to see those layers go away, and we really see the true horror underneath it, which is the whole point of the film.
Oh, I mean, I think your big scene is one of the most effective things in the film, because I came out when I was 16, so I had all things considered, a fairly okay coming out process and whatever, but watching that and hearing the words that you're throwing out at Theo, it really struck a chord, like in a good way. I mean, in a bad way, like the way it's supposed to be. But I like that too. Yeah, not bringing the religion into it, because I do think that that's just God, to say old hat at this point. But
yeah, I mean, when I first read that scene that you're talking about,
Mhm.
I thought, oh God, I gasped, and I thought, I can't say that. I cannot say that. And then I said, wait, Carrie, you're an actor, and there must be a reason that John wants you to do this. So talk to him. So we got on a Zoom call, and it was immediately kind of love at first sight, so to speak. And I thought, I wanted to be a part of telling that story, because I just think it's so important. And if I have to play this horrific character to do that, I'm happy to be trusted with it.
Oh, it's very memorable.
It's one of my favorite scenes, honestly. And it was amazing, the work that the actors did, that Carrie and Theo brought to it, because we shot it very late in the schedule.
Mhm.
And I knew it was going to be a killer, because it's the two of them sitting in a room. And in a way, it was the easiest day for me. I mean, the writer part of me worked hard on it, but the director part of me, I think my direction was sit still, don't move, look in the camera.
Yes.
And that was it. And then watching the first take, which was Carrie's coverage, everyone around Video Village, which our jaws dropped just with the way you were able to make it go from, I want to help you, I'm your friend, this is therapy, into being the most malicious, malign attack. It was a wonderful performance.
Thanks, John. It was a good day.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that was one of the easier days for you in the director's chair. I'm wondering, what was the hardest day to shoot?
The hardest day was probably our first 2 weeks, because it was my first time as a director.
Mhm.
And Kevin and I discussed it and decided that the very first thing we wanted to shoot was Owen's speech to the kids. So when he comes out that door, these actors they've seen Kevin passing, but it's his first presentation. So they're seeing Kevin as, Owen Whistler, and it's a long speech.
Yeah.
And
Basically, we were saying, you guys better learn your lines, because I learned this.
They got to see the
No
master
pressure.
at work from the very beginning, so there was no guff from those kids after
Flawless,
that.
by the way. He was flawless every day.
Yeah, every time. So that was challenging as a first day, because it's all that dialogue, it's all
Right.
of the actors, but it was great. It was, I mean, couldn't think of a better way to start the movie.
Mhm. So the film obviously deals with very sensitive and upsetting issues. How do you want viewers to feel when you, and with obviously without going into spoilers, when the movie ends? Like, what do you want them to take away with the end of this movie?
I think Kevin and Carrie will have their own responses. For me, it's celebration. It's a celebration of queer kids. It's a celebration of their individuality, of their passion, of their strength, of their courage. Because, we've talked about this. When I was growing up, gay characters didn't exist in horror movies. Or if they did, they were jokes, or they were victims. But to be able to create a world where the queer characters were the heroes and they triumph over unbelievable evil, I think it's very cathartic. It's very cathartic for me, because it's the movie I wish I had seen when I was 12, 13, 14.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo that. John told me that in our first conversation about the film. And, I was very touched by that and felt like that's a big win. If there are young people who identify in this way, who can see themselves and feel, empowered and, kind of rah-rah, while watching the movie. I think one of the greatest side benefits, if we are successful, is the people who are on the other side, the Owens of the world, could possibly look at this and say, this is horrible. This is a terrible, terrible thing. I've gotten some kind of an understanding of the horror of this basic concept, trying to change people.
And when we were on set, John took such great care of all of us, but in particular, his Magnificent Seven, I believe is what you called them, the LGBTQ actors who were playing these characters. And, he said, I remember when we first met, he said, I want to direct this film. It's my first one, but I want to direct it because I want to be the one to take care of these these actors.
Right.
And so I think that carried through in the whole shooting of the film. And I hope that people who watch the film, who can identify with those characters, will feel as taken care of as the actors did.
Well, Kevin, I'm actually really glad you mentioned though, because I feel like something that people ask all the time is, who is this for? And I hate that question so much. But for me, I feel like this film is really meant for, like queer kids and queer people. But yeah, on that off chance that someone who is super bigoted happens to put on this film, because I also think that the film acts as a sort of Trojan horse a bit, where it is a slasher film, but I don't think that the slasher aspect is truly the focus of the film. Like, you're kind of luring people in with the bait of a slasher movie, but the real horror comes from the camp itself. And I think that's a really brilliant way to go about it.
Well, not to put words in a great writer's mouth, but he could have made a dark little indie about a gay conversion situation, camp or whatever. But the horror genre is one that has the potential of being very, very accessible. I mean, horror movies do well. It's a lot of people who are straight, who like horror movies. And so wrapping this story up in something that's not only a commercial genre, it's a very specific sort of template of a throwback to 70s camp slasher movies. I think it was just kind of a stroke of genius, in terms of accessibility.
And it's got all those jump scares that you love, and it's got all those moments,
it's playful. I think it's a very playful film.
Fun in that way, yes.
I mean, even singing and dancing. It's
Yes.
got a little something for everyone.
So yeah, there's probably two sort of, arguably there's two sort of big standout moments in terms of set pieces. One is like that very memorable musical number, which is like a great example of queer joy, which is not present in the vast majority of the film. So I found that very welcome. I think the other scene that we'll have people talking about is what happens to Cooper Koch's character. So I'm wondering, was there more footage of that? Were there other examples of like aversion therapy or tactics that you considered including in the film? Or was it always like, okay, this one's truly terrible, let's just do this?
I mean, the kids I talked to who went through conversion therapy talked a lot about physical torture in terms of things like sleep deprivation, forced marches, hunger. So what we do in the film is an extrapolation on that, of things that almost happened or could have happened or might happen in a way to create a very provocative situation, because, every work of art exists to provoke on a certain level, and horror movies particularly. And this is a horror movie about something, which is the monstrousness of trying to take away people's identity. So I felt it was important. We were very straightforward about that and very tough about dramatizing that. So that was always the scene that I wrote.
Go ahead, Joe.
I guess as a bit of a follow-up, just in terms of like what did and did not get included in the film, were there other scenes with the two employees who had gone through the camp and ended up coming back as employees? Because I think for a lot of viewers, that's a fascinating idea where it's like they're not successful in their conversion, but they're still working there. So they're kind of like minor villains.
I don't think that nothing was really cut.
No, very little was cut from the movie. It was a lean script and a lean shoot. So it was certainly the way I wanted to present all the characters or as they now exist.
Okay. So we have our 2-minute warning. So I actually I know we're not supposed to talk about spoilers, but I actually did want to talk about a spoiler thing, and we'll cut it out in the video if we need to. I think that the choice that Theo's character makes at the end of the film to not side with the killer is going to be a very controversial choice, because I do think that you have a lot of queer viewers who are very angry and are going to be not angry at the film, but angry like they want to see comeuppance. They want to see violence. They want to see violence against their oppressors. And I was wondering, John, what was your what was your thought process going through this? Like, what do you think that people are going to make of this choice at the end? Like, do you want them to feel happy about it? Do you want them to feel torn about it? Like, what is this?
I think it's an ennobled choice that Jordan makes. the killer makes another choice. The killer enacts violent, bloody, insane revenge in cruel ways. Jordan is my hero. Jordan chooses a higher path. He chooses a path of benevolence and forgiveness and understanding. And I think that's what the movie is trying to say. It's not trying to say we need to slash back at those who try to oppress us. It's we need to rise above those who try to oppress us.
It's great. Okay. Well, really thank you both. Thank all three of you so much for speaking with us about the film today. Yes. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah. Excited to see how this comes out.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you all so much.